We all know that Starlink is one of SpaceX's and Elon Musk's most significant beloved programs, which aims in bringing super-fast satellite network service to its consumers, which most of you guys might know by now. So, what's with Starlink now? Eager to know? So, in today's episode, we will be discussing Starlink's issue with China, what they have come up with. Hey folks, hope you are all doing good. Welcome to Tech United, a place where we bring tech and people closer together. Are you excited enough? What are you waiting for? Subscribe, like, share, and click on the notification bell to get the latest news and updates on Tesla, Apple, SpaceX, and more. Introduced by SpaceX, Starlink is a satellite internet constellation that provides satellite internet access to most internet users down on Earth. The constellation currently comprises over 1,600 satellites in mid-2021. It will ultimately contain several thousands of mass-produced minor satellites in the lower Earth orbit, which communicate with established ground transceivers. While the technical chance of satellite internet service encloses most of the global population, basic service can be provided only in countries that have permitted SpaceX to provide service within any particular federal jurisdiction. As of September 2021, the beta service offering is currently available in 17 countries. That's what Starlink is. So, have you guys known about the clashes that occurred with China a few weeks before? It's alright, we will go through it. China has alleged that the tech giant SpaceX's satellites had two tight meetings with their space station, which was in orbit, and has protested to the UN about these occurrences, which nearly jeopardized the safety of the Chinese astronauts. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian addressed the media, stating that the Chinese space station was urged to avert crashes with network satellites dispatched by Musk's Starlink Internet Services project. This is now confirmed this year that SpaceX satellite links have made two close encounters with China's space station until now. Also, during this time, the Chinese astronauts were conducting missions in the space station, CSS, he asserted, while replying to a query by the media. Therefore, due to security purposes, the Chinese space station had to adopt preventive collision getaway control measures. Zhao was also the person who stated that China has revolted against SpaceX to the UN Secretary on December 3 about the SpaceX satellite's close meetings under the regulations of the Outer Space Treaty, certifying the above signatories to announce any kind of violations that matters harm to the lives of astronauts. He also said that, while under this agreement, both the parties should accept international commitment for the actions in outer space, whether it's governmental or non-governmental entities. After the objection posed by China regarding SpaceX, Elon Musk has been facing severe criticism until he has just replied to this news, stating about his satellite's collision avoidance feature. Let's take a deeper look into what happened. Both the events happened on July 1 and October 21, according to an article proposed by China last month to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. So, condemning the US for ignoring its responsibilities under the treaty and thereby impersonating a severe threat to the astronauts, Zhao instructed Washington to take the necessary steps to deter such close meetings from occurring ever again, and to act in a more responsible manner. In fact, the above incident was much of an insult to SpaceX and thereby to the US. The Chinese space station Tiangong has been staying in a near-circular orbit at an altitude of approximately 390 kilometers above the ground level since its launch on April 29. Even after its launch, China has delivered two batches of 3 astronauts to build the under-construction CSS, which was expected to be ready to function by the next year. And, in last October, China sent the next 3 astronauts, encompassing a woman too. The CSS is the most prestigious and strategically crucial space project for China, and the low-orbit space station would be the country's eye in the sky, giving round-the-clock bird's-eye view over the rest of the world. Once the CSS is functional, China will be the only nation to acquire a space station, while the good old International Space Station, or ISS, of Russia is a collective undertaking of various countries. The CSS is anticipated to be a competitor to the ISS and possibly may become the only space station to persist in orbit once the old ISS retires from its place. Many of you might want to know what really happened with the CSS and how they managed to evade, right? The Hong Kong-based South Morning Post documented that from May 16 to June 24, the Starlink 1095 satellite retained a smooth and constant dip from its original 555-kilometer altitude orbits to almost 382 kilometers and then kept up in that altitude, posing the threat of a probable collision with the CSS. Pursuing this event, the CSS was compelled to perform an evasive maneuver on July 1 when the two spacecraft had a tight meeting. This was clearly stated in China's note posted on the website of the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. While the other satellite, the Starlink 2305, also constantly shifted its orbit in October with an uncommon maneuver technique and unaccessible orbital errors, again urging the CSS to execute collision avoidance measures. According to satellite tracking evidence, Starlink 1095 proceeded to swoop down until it re-entered the atmosphere and burnt out in September, while the Starlink 2305 clambered from a 350-kilometer orbit to 550 kilometers from October to November. So, when the two spacecraft are orbiting at the same height, there is a huge risk of bridging paths and collisions, the document explained. So, what's SpaceX's stand? Yup, let's look into it. SpaceX has announced that their Starlink satellites are furnished with autonomous orbit-shifting features to avoid crashes with other spacecraft, and that other spacecraft do not need to maneuver in such a case of an encounter. In March, SpaceX endorsed a pact with U.S. space agency NASA, vowing to navigate their satellites out of the way if they got too near to the ISS or other NASA spacecraft. But this ain't NASA's. They also approved the launch of their satellites into preliminary orbits that do not come within 3 miles of the ISS or other NASA spacecraft. That's it. Apart from SpaceX, other commercial businesses have also declared their plans to further colonize space with their own internet service constellations, including Amazon's Blue Origin, OneWeb, and Telstar. One thing is sure from this, the night sky is gonna get polluted and messy from all this junk. So, coming back to SpaceX, Mr. Elon Musk is confronting a social media backlash after China's objection. Musk is well recognized in China even as his electric car maker Tesla appears under growing examination from Chinese automotive regulators. After the complaint was made public, Mr. Musk, SpaceX, and the US government were heavily criticized on China's Twitter-like Weibo microblogging platform. Among the complaints, one user related Starlink satellites to just a pile of space junk, and that their satellites are American space warfare weapons, and Musk is the recent weapon built by the US government and military, others asserted. Apart from these, there were also posts saying that the risks created by Starlink are being slowly uncovered, and the whole human race will have to pay for their business movements. Even though this is a concerning matter regarding the crisis and space debris has become a heightening hazard in recent years, with scientists instructing nations to stake data on satellite orbits in order to avert potential space collisions. There are approximately 30,000 satellites along with other pieces of debris circling the planet, and SpaceX independently has launched nearly 1,900 Starlink satellites. That's a factor. And due to this reason, last month, the U.S. space agency NASA unexpectedly suspended a spacewalk from the International Space Station over worries regarding space debris. With this, we have come to the end of this episode. Until now, Elon Musk hasn't yet given another explanation or reply to these objections from China other than his reply regarding the satellite's collision avoidance part. Maybe we will be hearing from him soon. Despite this, China's objection already poses a great threat to SpaceX, while the company is planning to expand in the coming years. Currently, the firm is managing a lot of crises, especially the one regarding the Starship engines, which we will be discussing well in our channel, so stay tuned until then. Suppose you liked today's episode on the Starlink issue. In that case, you might want to watch another video on the Tesla model on the left, or you might like our new video on upcoming Tesla updates for 2022 on the right.